Saxon Algebra 1, Lesson 96. Fancy sounding topic for a simple idea. Difference of two squares theorem. Let me show you what we're talking about. Let's say that we have two things that are squared and we're saying they're equal to each other. We want to find a way to solve this that will create a little formula for us so that we can deal with situations like this if we encounter them in a bigger problem. Let's move the q squared over to the other side. And now we get p squared minus q squared equals 0, right? Now, this we recognize as the difference of two squares, and we know how to factor this, right? We know you do p minus q, p plus q. We've seen that, right? Difference of two squares. You factor it just like this. The plus can be first or it can be second. It doesn't matter as long as you have one of each. Now we know that when you're multiplying two things like this and it equals 0, either the first one equals 0 or the second one equals 0, right? We call that the zero product theorem. If 0 is the answer, then one of the factors has to be 0. And then we can easily solve these. I'm going to swim the q across and I get p equals q or p equals negative q. Okay, this is what we wanted to get to because this is the short answer to this. So we can write this as a theorem by saying if p squared equals q squared, then p equals plus or minus q. And I don't know if we've used this notation. I can't remember. Honestly, because I'm teaching multiple levels of algebra at the same time, I can never remember who I've told what. I don't know that you have seen this before. But this is what we call the difference of two squares theorem. We did the work to prove it right here, and here we just have the summary. If you have this, then you have this, right? And this is just a fast way of writing them separately. We're going to use this to solve a couple quick problems. And I'm going to write it again up here just so we have it. If p squared equals q squared. Don't ask me about those letters. It's random. Right? That's our theorem. Let's do example 96.1. And we're asked to solve p squared equals 16. Okay, well, if those two things are both squares, then p equals plus or minus 4. Right, we're just using this and plugging in our numbers for our specific example. 96.2, there are 3 problems in all. P squared equals 41. Okay, well now this seems a little trickier because we know we take the square root of both numbers. This would be p equals, but 41 doesn't have a clean square root, right? We're doing this. We're taking the square root of both sides. Well, here's what we have to remember. You can always take the square root of a number. You might not be able to simplify it, but the square root of 41 times the square root of 41 equals 41. So this can be our answer. We're used to seeing square roots as perfect little numbers like this, right? But they don't have to be. Square root of 41 times square root of 41 equals 41. That makes a weird amount of sense. So this is our answer. And so what you can see is that when the number that we're trying to take the square root of is not a perfect square, it's almost easier because we just slap a pig house on it and we're done. And we're going to get more and more practice doing this. This calculation is going to be part of a bigger calculation that we're learning soon. K squared equals 13. So we know that we just take the square root of both. K equals plus or minus the square root of 13. And that's the right answer. Okay? So this is what I want you to take away from this lesson. If you've got two things that are, two squares that are equal to each other, then you take the square root of each with a plus or minus. And if the number, if Q is not a perfect square, it's okay, right? You just show it as the square root without simplifying it. Guess what? That's all there is to lesson 96. I know, right? Celebrate. Okay, that is the last lesson that I will be covering until April. Where's my paper? Here it is. Oh, I haven't crossed off a few. I will be back on April 11th to drop a new lesson. I will be, there will be a video on March 28th that will be the review video. It'll tell you what to study for the test. If you are a YouTube student that would like to take the test, just email me and I'll send you a PDF. Local students, I'll drop it off as I usually do. And when you do your video check-in this week, I'll remind you of all the details of how this works. All right, so happy, now it's spring break, and I will see you for a new lesson on April 11th. Thank you, goodbye.